The village of Akpara stood quietly in the heart of the African forest, a place where life and myth danced hand in hand. Children played in the red dust under the sun, farmers tilled the fertile soil, and hunters brought back meat from the bush. But deep within the forest, far beyond the yam farms and palm groves, lay a forbidden place called Okiri Grove. No one hunted there. No wood was ever cut from its twisted trees, and no child dared run across its edges. The elders said it was cursed, a place where the spirits of night walked freely. Birds did not sing there, animals did not graze, and the silence of the grove was so heavy that even the wind seemed afraid to pass through it. But one evening, fate carried the curious too far. A group of young boys, chasing a wounded antelope, broke past the paths of their fathers and stumbled into Okiri Grove. The air there was heavy, thick like smoke, and the ground felt damp beneath their feet, though no rain had fallen. And then they saw it half buried in the black soil, covered with roots and moss, was a massive, dark egg, as tall as a man's waist. Its shell was cracked faintly with lines that glowed red, as though fire pulsed inside. The boys gasped and shouted in wonder. "It is a great bird's egg," one cried. "No, it must be the treasure of spirits," another said. But their curiosity outweighed their fear. With all their strength, they rolled the egg from the soil and dragged it out of the grove, their laughter echoing in the dead silence. By the time they returned to Akpara, villagers had gathered to stare. Some clapped their hands in awe, others crossed their chests in fear, old women whispered, and the elders' faces turned pale. One of them, Elder Asukwo, struck his staff against the ground and shouted, "Fools! That is no egg of bird nor beast. Return it at once!" But the younger men mocked him. They touched the shell and felt it throb, like a heartbeat, but laughed it off as a trick of their minds. That night, against the elders' warnings, the egg was left in the village square, shining faintly under the moonlight. And when midnight came, the horror began. The egg cracked with a sound like thunder. A foul mist poured out, black and choking, spreading across the huts. The air turned cold, the fires dimmed, and the earth shivered. With a final sharp break, the shell split open, and from within crawled a nightmare. It was tall, its spine bent like a broken tree, its limbs too long, ending in claws that scraped sparks from the ground. Its skin was covered in black scales, dripping with slime that hissed against the earth. Two glowing red eyes opened, burning like coals in the dark, and when its mouth parted, jagged teeth glistened with dripping venom. The creature raised its head and let out a scream that tore through the village, so loud that goats broke their ropes and children woke screaming. The moon itself seemed to dim, hiding behind rushing clouds, and then it spoke. In a voice like stones grinding together, "I am born of shadows, and your souls shall feed me." The villagers scattered in terror. Mothers clutched their children, men raised spears, but the monster vanished into the mist with speed unnatural. For a moment, silence held. Then came the first screams. From the northern huts, blood-curdling cries rose. When the men rushed there with torches, they found horror beyond belief. 3 huts were torn apart, their thatch shredded, their walls splintered, blood soaked the earth. Inside, nothing remained of those who had lived there, only bones, stripped bare as though eaten clean. Fear fell on Akpara like a dark blanket. The elders gathered and spoke with trembling lips. They knew the truth of the thing. The creature was no beast of the earth. It was the curse their ancestors had once bound the egg of shadows. Long ago, the story went, the people of Akpara had fought a creature that came from the darkness of the earth, a being that fed not only on flesh but on fear itself. Unable to kill it, the ancient seers sealed it in an egg of black stone, burying it deep in Okiri Grove, locking it away with blood sacrifice and chants of power. But the old seals had been broken when the foolish boys dragged it home. Now, the curse lived again. Night after night, the monster returned. Its attacks were swift and merciless. It came with the mist, extinguishing fire, making torches die in men's hands. Those who stood against it found their weapons useless. Spears snapped against its scales, arrows bounced harmlessly off its slimy hide. And always, it fed. The more the villagers screamed, the stronger it grew. Fear was its true feast. On the third night, a warrior named Edom, famed for his bravery, stood in the square and challenged the beast. With spear in hand, he cried, "I will not fear you, Shadow," and hurled his weapon with all his strength. But the spear shattered like a twig against the creature's chest. The monster laughed, a sound like rusted iron tearing apart. It lunged, lifted Edom high into the air, and before the horrified eyes of the village, tore him in two. His blood rained down, soaking the dust. The people wailed, their hope broken. Panic spread. Some tried to flee the village, running into the forest paths toward neighboring lands. But none returned. Their screams echoed through the trees, carrying back on the wind, though their bodies were never found. The beast had sealed them in, trapping all within its dark prison. Desperate, the chief of Akpara sent for Equo, the witch of the river, oldest of all women. She came at dusk, her body thin as sticks, her face lined with countless years. She painted her face with white chalk and rattled cowries around her neck. When she entered the village, the ground seemed to grow colder. She cast her bones upon the earth and whispered to the spirits. The bones cracked, twisted, and then lay still. Equo raised her eyes to the chief and said, "The egg of shadows cannot be killed by iron nor fire. It feeds on fear, and so long as fear exists, it grows. Someone must carry its broken shell back to Okiri Grove, bury it deep in the earth, and bind it with their own blood. Only sacrifice will hold it." The people groaned in terror. Who would offer such a price? That very night, the monster descended again, larger than before, its wings stretching wide, blotting out the moon. The villagers fought with drums and fire, trying to slow it, while a group of chosen men carried the shattered remains of the egg back toward Okiri Grove. Leading them was Okon, a young hunter with a strong heart. They ran through the mist, clutching the shell, while behind them the monster roared and gave chase. One by one, the men fell. Some were snatched into the air, torn apart in shadows. Others vanished screaming into the fog. But Okon pressed on, blood pounding in his ears, clutching the cursed shell against his chest. At last, he reached the grove. The trees loomed like skeletons, the ground cracked and smoking. He dug into the earth with his bare hands, placing the shell into the soil. Then he raised his knife, cut his palm, and let his blood drip upon it. The monster landed behind him, shaking the earth. Its claws raked the ground, its breath hot and stinking against his neck. Okon turned, his face calm, though his eyes burned with terror. With his last strength, he smeared his blood across the shell and shouted the witch's words. The ground opened. The egg glowed with red fire. A great wind rose, sucking the monster into its shell. The beast roared, its claws gouging trenches in the soil as it fought. But the blood sealed it, dragging it down. With one final, ear-shattering scream, it was swallowed whole. The earth closed with a thunderous crack. Okon fell beside it, lifeless, his blood the price that bound the curse again. At dawn, the mist lifted. The air grew warm, the birds returned, and the people emerged from their huts in silence. They found Okon's body lying still in the grove. With tears and wails, they carried him home, mourning the one who had saved them. The witch Equo stood before them and said, "The egg of shadows sleeps again. But remember, children of Akpara, every 100 years, it will stir. Pray that your children do not forget what you have learned in fear." The village rebuilt, but the scars remained. Around fires at night, the story was told to children, their eyes wide with dread. None dared enter Okiri Grove again. Yet, years later, when the story had begun to fade into legend, children played at the forest's edge. One small boy, chasing a lizard, tripped and fell. His hand struck something buried in the soil. He pulled it out, a smooth, black stone, faintly warm to the touch, and when he held it, he felt it pulse. Just once. The egg of shadows was not gone, only waiting.